Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Khalil Doheny, and I'm the Director of Content Marketing at Digital Niche Agency. Today, we have Mike from Coin and Card. Mike, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Leo. Thank you for putting this together.
Of course. And Mike, while people are trickling in, do you want to give a quick introduction to the gentleman we have here today?
I do. We have with us today Charles Foell III. He's a PhD. Charles is going to be discussing the technologies which we have, which are amazing technologies. We've also got with us Gary Gianotti. Now, Gary is, many people probably recognize Gary's name. In particular, he's got a George Washington Silver Oval Presidential Medal, which is dated 1792, and has done a number of forensic analysis on that medal, proving that it is of that date time. I think it's going to be pretty fascinating to learn more about that, because this could be extremely important historically. And then Jason Sapan, also known as Dr. Laser, will be joining us here soon. And Jason is really the founder of the world's oldest gallery for holography. So this is important in the context of what we are going to be discussing with Gary. So that's our guest for today.
Awesome. And I'm gonna turn it back to you here, Mike, in a second. We will have a presentation that we're going to be walking through today. And then if you have a question for everyone in the audience, if you have a question throughout the presentation, please leave them in the Q&A chat box below. We're going to make sure we have some time towards the end to answer those questions. And if you weren't able to attend the webinar today, don't worry. This whole webinar is being recorded as we speak, and we'll be posting a recap post-event. So with that being said, Mike, I'm going to pass the mic back to you.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen here. And this is our presentation deck here. So first of all, let me do this. I want to thank every one of you that is here with us today on this webinar. I know everybody has things they're doing, and I appreciate your taking your time today. And obviously with the amount of interest which you have with what the technologies are that we're bringing to the collectibles industry. So I'll take just a moment to describe what we're doing. We really have broken this into two different components. I'm going to leave the meat of this to Charles Foell, who is a PhD, to discuss the technologies. But in a general sense, what we do is we use 2.5 micron laser measuring systems to extract height and color and image data from collectibles. Collectibles in this case would be any collectible having a industry accepted grading system. And we'll focus today more on the numismatics end, but it also would be sports trading cards, comic collectibles, anything in the collectibles industry. So I'll just to sort of expand a little bit on that. A single Lincoln cent will have approximately 60 million measured data points. Now that's a massive amount of data and information. One of the things that happens here is that we have this massive quantities of data, and in these massive quantities of data, we had to find a way to be able to do analysis. So what we came up with and what we developed is a deep neural network and artificial intelligence processing of all of the data and the image. And we'll get into that a little bit more. I'll leave that actually to Charles to get into. But essentially, the underlying purpose of that is to be able to stabilize third-party grading. It's ideal for counterfeit detection. It provides the consumer scientific-based reports and analysis of collectibles, something that doesn't exist today. Also, it's useful for parallel industry, such as insurance. And here's one of the big ones. We've designed this as the digital fingerprint, which is actually the intellectual property or IP of the physical collectible. We have designed that digitization to bridge e-commerce between Web 2 and Web 3. And I'll just lightly touch on that for a moment, and that with blockchain technologies, chain of title, there's of course NFTs, but smart contracts which control shared royalties. Now, if you're an investor, we hope you are. What does that mean? Well, it means that over a period of time, you can aggregate royalties. Now, and they have a real value. I mean, if you think of, and again, I'll just stay with numismatics. If you think of numismatics, for example, and you attach royalties into the marketplace, that trigger on every single resale, those are perpetual. They're forever. You can go right now and buy a a Roman Constantine that's over 2,000 years old. Well, what's the shelf life of a collectible? Well, that could be measured in decades, if not in centuries. So, go ahead. I've put up the panelists. You can see there's Charles Foell, there's Gary, and there's Jason. I'll make this information available because with the links, if you want more information on these gentlemen. Let me go ahead and go into the next panel. The industry, what is broken, how we're fixing it, and forensic application, and then we'll open up to a Q&A. Now, I do want to be clear on that. Why have we asked you to join us today? Well, there's one, we want to build market audience and participation, but we also want to invite you to become an owner in the company. And at the end of the presentation, there's a link for our Reg CF offering. This is the second CF we've done. With the first one, we raised 1.1 million very quickly. A little harder this time because the economy is a little worse. But just the same, it's something I think that is well worth looking at. Let me go ahead and switch over here to the collectibles industry. So the collectibles industry, and I'll go ahead and enlarge that. The collectibles industry, the way we identify that is, again, numismatics, sports trading cards, comics, each of which has its own industry accepted grading system. If you look at the collectibles industry and you break it down into really two components, marketplaces and third-party grading, all of which are consumer-based, and you really can't have one without the other. They really do go hand in hand. So what is broken? Now, when it comes to marketplaces, there's high cost is one. If you go to eBay as an example, you're looking at a 12.8% right out the gate as a marketplace cost. Another thing is the knowledge barriers to entry. Now, I'm not talking too much about the people who are heavily engaged in the industry. I'm talking about bringing in the youngsters, the people that we need to come in behind us in order to grow the industry. And that leads me to the next component, which is a business model, which I call stagflation. And that is that the industry is viewed primarily as a hobby industry, which it has been. So, I mean, that's great for a heavily branded industry, but it needs an alternate exit marketplace. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why that exists. But the Web3 technologies and emerging marketplace today offer that as a solution. So I think we can expect to see a significant growth in the collectibles industry overall, but it's going to come from Web3. Now, also there's one of the things that is a problem in the industry is there's a minimal generational transferability or continuation to errors, and a lot of that has to do with the knowledge barriers and lack of a alternate exit market. So other than what's what you can access through heritage auctions and others, great markets, but there needs to be more to grow the industry. And one of the things with the technology, as I mentioned earlier, and I'll just touch on this, is that the deep neural network and artificial intelligence as a runtime engine also means that we can develop and put the power of the deep neural network artificial intelligence processing into the smartphone, iOS, and Android at application level to enable the graphic user interface and point of sale to the consumer market. So those we want to bring into the market no longer have to have years and decades of industry expertise to know that they're buying the right thing at the right price and that they have a market and can enter that market and exit that market. So that's enough on that. Now on third-party grading, you couldn't have a marketplace without third-party grading. We all know that. But the practices and technology are obsolete. They really haven't kept time or kept in tune with the technologies, which is where we are at. Some of the problems that creates is inconsistent grading. I'm sure anybody in the industry will tell you, hey, look, I sent my Lincoln sent, I assumed was an MS-65 and it came back as a AU-58. So there is no scientific data that supports third-party grading, and that can tend to cause trust issues. We're also seeing counterfeits are far harder to detect. And as a result of that, some of them have been making their way into into holders with very well-known third-party grading companies. So what does this create? It creates a lack of third-party grading stabilization. So we believe that the technologies we have developed, which include a DNN AI proof of concept, will assist towards third-party grading standardization, because the DNN AI is developed for an automated system. And that we accomplished last year. Now our projects were coming up, or to go from the POC into a phase 1 production grade MVP. So then moving on here, I wanted to go ahead and touch on and turn over the floor, if I can, to Charles. And Charles can then speak to all of these different things you see here: deep neural networks and AI, third-party grading automation, Web3 marketplace and infrastructure, technologies and alternate marketplaces, and so forth. And what I'll do, though, to kind of kick that off first, is share with you a sample digital fingerprint. Now, this digital fingerprint is derived from a laser scan of a numismatic collectible. And in here, what we have applied is international standards of measurement for surface roughness as a secondary layer. So this is a sample of a report and analysis that is provided to the consumer. Whomever wants it, you can validate the physical collectible with the existing grading system where it's located. For example, we would have a link in here where you could go to, in this case, that's a TCGS graded coin. You could obviously go to TCGS and confirm that that coin exists. So this is one of the things that we were doing. Now, I'm going to show a short video right here, and then I'm going to turn the floor over to Charles. This is a video of one of the laser scanning systems that we have. It's sort of interesting to see if people haven't seen this. This is a table full of coins, and what we're doing here is we're doing an alignment of these coins. So there you can see a 3D image of a specific coin, and we use this for alignment. You can see that's an image of a bunch of coins that are out of alignment. We can batch file those, so we could do hundreds at a time. And then after alignment, you see how they basically snap to the grid. So now they're all perfectly aligned. This is very important for the output data that we use for the DNN and AI processing. Here you can see one coin superimposed over another coin. Now you can see that has been aligned, and they're in perfect alignment. And so now we would then utilize the data. This is one of the identification areas, for example, that was used, and that's you batch file and then utilize that for alignment purposes. Now, what this is a sample output of a very tiny bag mark that's located above Lincoln's brow, where you just see that sort of little star image. What you're seeing here are the individual measured numbers. Now, those numbers are over 29,000 measured numbers in that bag mark. And what now you see is between the red and the green, this is what the human eye sees when it comes to the when you view it with the human eye. That's what you're going to see as the damaged mark from that bag mark area. All right, now with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Charles Foell.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you, Mike. Thank you for that quick overview there. I just want to say super exciting technology, super exciting to see this kind of come to fruition. I think a lot of us, especially in collectibles, have been looking forward to getting this technology more involved, getting technology to be able to solve a lot of these problems people have been having, and also, as Mike said, help expand the market. There's a lot of ways for all of us to be able to enjoy coin collecting and collectibles, and to be able to also make it more accessible to lots of folks. Yeah, so this was right here. So I think, did you want to go over the DNN firstly on the screen?
Yes.
Previous slide? Yeah.
Yeah, the DNN aspects of this would be the grading side.
There we go. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, because I think that was in the previous. Okay, that's fine. So in terms of the technologies going into this, so the DNN and the AI. So the DNN is a deep neural network, and it's often a big component of these artificially intelligent systems, synthetically intelligent systems, and allows us to mathematically be able to recognize a lot of the patterns in these coins and be able to accurately assess them in ways that can be very difficult for even seasoned people to inspect these coins, and especially for people who have less experience being able to assess these coins. So it's a technology that really allows being able to again, quickly and accurately bring that understanding of that coin condition and coin status to other folks. And so, as Mike went over as well, so there's this three-dimensional kind of map of the coin that goes into it. That's part of the data that goes into the deep neural network, or the DNN, and it's a very important component. So when people look at coins, there's a lot of things you can look at a coin, and other collectibles. Knowing exactly the surface kind of topography, all those bumps and wrinkles and all the features that should be there or shouldn't be there when the coin is minted. That information is captured, and it's a very important part of knowing how valuable that coin is, and also identifying to see if that coin is consistent with, say, some other coins that are out there. So it's a very important portion of that. And of course, the topography of it, so knowing all the different nooks and crannies of the coin, or other collectibles, and knowing which the surface roughness. That's an important part of the equation. What's also included in these analyses is the color of the coin. So a lot of people who look at the color of a coin, or look at say the toning of the coin, that's very important in appreciating the coin, understanding the value of it, and all the information is encoded in these reports right here. So I think, okay, those there. Want to see some more about that, or up to the next one?
Yeah. So we can go ahead and move on from there. Let me go ahead and exit this particular one. Go back to the presentation.
There we go. Yeah. So the blockchain technologies. So in addition to being able to accurately measure the coin, and accurately measure the the collectible that's going into it, what's really important for the value of the collectible, and kind of knowing what you have there, is essentially the pedigree of the coin, and knowing where the coin has been, knowing if the coin is, say, owned by a previous person, what the history of that coin is. I think for a lot of collectibles that are out there, knowing that history is essential to appreciating the value of it. It can be pretty hard without technology to be able to assess the actual pedigree of that coin. So we have experts, for example, we have Gary on the call here, who has enormous amounts of knowledge that's often required to be able to assess the history of a coin, the authenticity of a coin, or a metal, or other collectible. So what the technology does is allows us to be able to collect the data required to help to quickly and efficiently collect the data required to assess the authenticity of it. And the blockchain is something that can be used to be able to help encode, if that coin or that collectible, basically the ownership of it at a certain point in time, and keep track of that in a very automatic and systematic way. And so you say, hey, we have this collectible, it's been verified, we have all the data goes into it to verify its authenticity. And we encode that to the blockchain, and that basically then is taken forward. So anytime a person now wants to be able to say, I have something authentic, and have that authenticity be carried forward in a very systematic and a very scientific way, the blockchain is absolutely essential for making that happen. And so that's where these NFTs come into place. So the non-fungible tokens, it's a certain aspect of this blockchain technology or a certain version of it where you can say, I have something like this coin. It's non-fungible. You can't divide it up. It's a certain collectible, and you encode that non-fungibility into this blockchain mathematically and use that going forward to keep track of its authenticity and who's owned it and so on. So you have the pedigree baked into it. And also smart contracts around that. So smart contracts become, part of this blockchain technology to say, hey, this is a collectible. It has a certain history to it. And when it exchanges hands, you can mathematically encode that as part of the contract process. So if you say, hey, this certain person owned it, I want to encode that information into that blockchain, into that contract, when it changes hands. And as Mike noted, this really opens up a really important kind of a new market, technologically speaking, to be able to take that pedigree, take that history of a coin or some other collectible and carry that forward. So knowing that that coin has a history and it's mathematically provable, or knowing that metal or collectible has mathematical history that's provable, you can go ahead and say, hey, that's part of the value, and people going forward that want to that care about that pedigree and understand the value of that, they want that as part of the history of that coin going forward. And this system right here allows you to mathematically encode all of that. It also allows you to include that monetization. So the royalties part of it can be included as part of a kind of a mathematical or a smart contract. So the collectible gets scanned, it gets mathematically measured, it gets physically measured. And going forward, every time that gets shared or it gets exchanges hands or gets sold, whether it's an entirety or people want to have partial ownership of it, all it gets encoded in the blockchain. So it's a very, very slick system from a mathematical standpoint. Should I open it for any questions at that point?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and move forward just a little bit further in before we open the questions here.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and go on to the next part, which I think is important. Maybe you can speak to this, and this would be the deep neural networks AI as a runtime environment.
Yeah, absolutely. So on the previous slide there, I guess there was one part about the Web3 portion of it, and so when we talk about being able to, keep track of a coin, uniquely identify it or some other collectible, and be able to give a good record of that going forward, and utilize that for being able to expand ways to monetize that and share that important history going forward. The Web3 allows a way to essentially create the network around it. So the Web3 provides these platforms to kind of bake in these royalties and smart contracts. And what we have here on the screen, so the deep neural networks and AI runtime, is a very important way to be able to make it very practically accessible for people with smartphones and other smart devices. Less theoretically than having, say the blockchain being able to have these smart contracts, you have a real tangible system that you can have in a person's hand. You can implement on these mobile devices, you can implement on websites using the Web3 and the deep neural networks to go ahead and keep track of all these important portions or important aspects of the coin history and the coin data and the collectible data. To be able to go ahead and collect these royalties on the collectibles going forward. So you don't have to worry about, so this Web3 technology and utilizing these runtimes, you don't have to worry about that coin or that collectible that you have ownership of and want to transfer ownership to collecting royalties. This system helps take care of that. So anyone who wants to go ahead and buy that, wants to go ahead and take partial or entire ownership of that coin, this system, this runtime, essentially handles that in real time.
Perfect. I'll add to that just a couple things. One is that this is new. This is new technology. But what we foresee is that this has potential to add royalties as a new asset class because they're in the NFT marketplace, if you will. The royalties are valid, they're viable, they're enforced in Web3 marketplaces. So when you add that as a component to the industry, you're adding a mechanism to generate royalties, just like the name says, for decades. So every single time a collectible is resold, it has royalties attached to it. Now, if you note, those are shared royalties. So if you're an investor and you're looking at aggregation, let's say, you have 500 coins worth $500 each, and we create 500 digital fingerprints. Now those 500 coins and 500 digital fingerprints we put onto Web3 commerce, royalty supported marketplace. Those are now earning royalties for decades and decades. Now, but you're just one person. So now increase those numbers. Now we have 500 people and we have 5 million coins or cards or combinations of those out into these marketplaces, and those are shared royalties. So what we've done is we have changed the dynamics of the industry, because who benefits? Well, the consumer benefits because the royalties are shared with them. Who else could benefit? Well, mints. We could go take this directly to mints. Be prior to the market entry of royalties, for example. There are so many different revenue avenues, and in addition to that, obviously, third-party grading. We'd like to become to standardize using the DNN AI. What does that mean for them? Well, we could do the same thing for them. They can participate in royalties for decades to come. So there's a huge market opportunity that just simply would not and does not exist without the Web3 technology. So then the last part of that I'll speak to you as well is the expansion, the market expansion. If you go to a numismatic show, you see a lot of folks that are 50s, 60s, and so on, but you don't see a lot of younger people. And I think that the big problem with that is because simply the amount of information that's necessary needs to be known in order to engage in these markets. And then there isn't a real solid exit strategy beyond knowing that you're going to pay high marketplace expenses. These dynamics change, particularly with the royalties aspect, because now you're actually earning and you can actually aggregate. And the other thing is transferability. I mean, so a lot of collectors will collect most of their life. And then what happens? They pass on, and where does that collection go? Well, with this, you can attach the royalties and then transfer the royalties to your heirs. I mean, so there's whole new avenues that don't otherwise exist. And the last one down here, shared royalties vesting consumers directly into Web3 marketplaces. That's a very true statement. What that means is that the consumer has a direct interest in the resale of the physical collectible. So what are they going to do? Well, obviously they're going to promote that. So because what does that do? That keeps that chain of royalties in continuation. So there's a lot to look at here, and I know that this is very new, but it's all very real. All right, so with that, I'll go ahead and move on here. So what we've done also, counterfeit detection, that's so important. China and other countries have gotten so good at counterfeits that, even highly qualified dealers have difficulties in many cases with being able to make an identification. Is it in fact a counterfeit or is it genuine? Well, I can tell you this. The average, we'll just use a Lincoln cent, for example, has about 60 million measured data points. When we do a laser scan, what happens is we capture the topography, the footprint of that coin. So if we scan counterfeits, known counterfeits, into the system, it's just a matter of applying algorithms and pattern matching, pattern detection to be able to say, hey, this is definitively a counterfeit coin. Now we can make that's part of what we're doing here. So I think that this is going to have a huge impact in the industry as far as for being able to reduce and mitigate counterfeits. Now, the other thing too, what about parallel industries such as insurance? Might they be interested in this? All right, so let me go ahead then and introduce. We'll start with Gary. I see Jason has joined us. Jason, you want to unmute your microphone there?
I'm unmuted.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to start though with Gary. Now, Gary is, as I mentioned earlier, he's got a fascinating metal that's dated 1792. There's already been an extensive forensic examination that dates the metal to 1792. So we know it's of that time era, but we have introduced Gary and Jason to our technology. They've had a look at it. And I think that they're excited about what we can do with that technology. And the reason I've invited them as guests is I think that Gary has something that could be historically extraordinarily important to the numismatic industry. And we're willing to take on the challenge of doing a forensic examination to assist him in that effort. So basically, what I am seeing is that what are we going to find? I guess as the first director of the U.S. Mint has some involvement, the signatures of the metal's main designer. There's an art called diffraction grading, and that which is a parent of hand abrasion holography, which is nearly 200 years older than the modern holography. Images of fresco portrait layers, founding fathers, biblical scenes, British royalty, documents that regarding the founding of the United States. So how important is that historically? So I'll go ahead and turn the floor over to Gary. And Gary, can you go ahead and introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about your 1792 and your interest in our technologies to help you further your forensic examination?
Thank you. How are you? It's been a almost 11-year project in the study and ownership of the 1792 and a couple other earlier metals. And I've taken the study and the research.
Well, and I was purchasing something.
Well, we were very roadblocked for a long time after we had finished XRF testing, and then we went into a type of testing that I wanted to go in advanced testing, and we took the advanced testing into a type of forensic laser burning testing. And basically we're gas chambering, doing laser burns the size of hairs to do elements testing. And it was a major advancement. And we had basically had learned that these were way more complex. And we had learned that there were layers of plating, and it's called fire gilting plating, where the main plates of the metals, you have your 92% sterling silver plus, then you wind up having a layer of pure silver. And then after that pure silver, you have another layer of sterling silver. And it's pretty mind-boggling. And we were able to date all the elements to the period. And then we had a mishap on our loop and found out that it was repaired in about 1852. And it had a cadmium, and cadmium's used for welding. And they brought in a jet propulsion scientist, and she found the welds and went through to the original. And we were very fortunate. We were able to date that. There was nothing more that they could really do other than proving the metals, period. There is nothing there that traces it to be in modern day. And so I wanted to take it further, and I had always believed from some of the video and images that I had done in the past that there was forms of writing on the metal. And then I had brought in a friend of mine, and he gave it a try, and he specializes in macro photography. And we were using magnification lenses and special different colored lights and all these setups of DIY setups that he had done. And all of a sudden one day, we were able to capture all this information as well, that it was signed by Joseph Wright in multiple locations in a type of shading or in a chemical.
Gary, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
What do you anticipate to be the possible historic significance of this 1792 metal?
Well, Joseph Wright, who was to be pretty much the first engraver of the United States Mint, he died in 1793 of yellow fever. And to be able to have written records and knowing that these are the first-hand portraits that we have of George Washington and other founding fathers on this metal. But as far as the documentation, It's done in layers, like three
Right,
three
so-
coats of layers.
So, I mean, obviously, it has the potential to be a great historical value. Now, one of the things I've noticed in my observations from what you have shared with us is the calligraphy that's on this metal, which I found really stunning, frankly, and which is why we've got Jason here to speak to that a little bit. But that's unique, isn't it?
Absolutely. It was basically while trying to track down and get better images of these names and this writing that are in layers that we started seeing these oddball distortions, and that was it. And I knew we had some sort of a holography, and I did some research and I tracked down Dr. Laser.
All right.
And we
Part of the reason that you were interested in our technology is what? How would you what is your interest in the technologies that we utilize?
well, the goal is that we want to be able to use your system and the AI to be able to reconstruct what we can't read with macro photography. Pretty much bring out this full writing and really see what this document is saying in there. It's on both sides of the metal as well as the signatures into perfection, and that's what we're really trying to see reassembled.
All right, perfect.
And
Jason, let me jump to you here momentarily. Jason, you're also known as Dr. Laser. You've got the world's oldest gallery of holography. You're an expert in that industry, one of the pioneers. I know you've worked as a educator and you've lectured at a number of different schools. You and I have had a couple conversations, and among them was you have viewed this metal, and you are, because of the holographic content of the metal in particular. And what is it that caught your attention in maybe the historic significance of this particular metal?
Well, first off, thank you, and hello to all our other guests. There's a disconnect in the timeline of the discovery of holography, which dates back in its earliest theoretical form to about 1948, but in actual form of practical visual holography, it took the invention of the laser. So it wasn't until the 1960s that we actually saw holograms. Yet here's something that has holographic properties from the 1700s. It's almost like a Jules Verne novel, something that predates known history.
So
When Gary, yes, sorry.
I guess that when you think about that, here we are talking about holography existing in the 1700s.
Right, exactly.
Which is stunning. Now, you have seen this yourself on the metal which Gary is alluding to. Now, what's your thoughts on utilization of the laser technology, the AI, the deep neural network, and what sort of answers might we be able to find from your point of view?
I believe we'll actually be able to determine how they accomplish this with rudimentary tools. To me, this is akin to understanding how people 4,000 years ago were able to build the pyramids with nothing more than very basic mechanical tools. So, yeah, I mean, history has shown us that things that we believe are impossible can happen, and often history forgets an invention and it takes centuries or millennia to have it rediscovered. So to me, I think this is one of those rare chance opportunities to understand how people at the very beginning of our scientific world of today were able to do something that still is incredibly difficult and rare. However, when Gary first approached me, I was reluctant to believe him until he actually came in with the metal and I saw it for myself. And seeing is believing. we immediately did a little bit of research and discovered that a man named Rittenhouse, I believe David Rittenhouse, who was running the operations there at the Mint, was also the man who history attributes here in America to discovering diffraction gratings. Now, a hologram is I would say, an intelligent diffraction grating. So you put the clues together and it can be true, even though it seems unlikely. I believe it was a Sherlock Holmes phrase that after you've eliminated all of the possibilities, whatever remains must be the truth. And I think your technology can actually help us identify the surface relief patterns that would make this illusion actual and real. And until we can see that, it's still a mystery.
Understood. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much, both Jason and Gary. The objective here really is to underscore that we're really talking about forensic level applications, and that forensic level application being applied to the collectibles industry, and that's in whether that's in the form of digital fingerprints and royalties and identification and grading, and it covers the entire spectrum of collectibles. And again, that's not just in numismatics, that applies to sports trading cards and comics, anything that has an existing grading system or standard of measurement. So I'm going to go ahead now and move over to a Q&A section. And I'm going to quickly here, I'm going to just click on this link here and share this with you. This is our Reg CF page, and we would invite anybody that would like to go to see that and become an owner. I mean, that's at investcoinandcard.com. That's our Reg CF landing page. It tells you more about the company, more about the technologies. This is the future of the industry, and we'd love to have you. That's an image of a very expensive grading system or scanner that we have. So we'd love to have you on board, and I'm going to go ahead and go now to frequently or to the questions. And let me see how I do that exactly here. And let me click on this. And with that, we'll go ahead and open the floor for questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike, for that wonderful presentation. The first question that I see here is, what kind of OD reaction, if any, are you getting from the two prominent coin grading services? Any blowback?
No, we actually have not had any blowback, and that's a great question. Okay, so I'm going to make a couple assumptions. The assumption being that it's a heavily branded industry, very controlled, and I get it. It is. But I really believe that standardization helps everybody. We would offer the technologies, and we plan to offer those technologies to the grading houses in particular. So in that scope, or where we're at, is we've already done the proof of concept. We're not guessing this stuff works. We have proven it works. We have developed a proof of concept for automated third-party grading. We have already done that. Our next step, though, is to go from the proof of concept to the phase 1 minimum viable product, which is a production grade. That's what we'll then present to third-party grading companies and ask them to then participate in test the system. Let's see how it works. Let's make any changes that we might need. And then from there, we'll then develop it out into all of the, we're going to start with the Morgan dollar. We'll then go into all of the other denominations in the US coins, and then we can branch off into foreign and into sports trading cards and into comics and things of that nature. So that's a very good question, and thank you for asking it.
And then what patents have you secured? Any in the USA? There are several patents out there, isn't there?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah. What patents have you secured? Sure. Any in the USA?
Yes.
Aren't there several patents out there right now?
Yes, we in fact have. We filed patents. Basically, everything I have described to you, we have filed an international patent on. We also have a patent pending, which is we've already constructed that we're going to also convert to an international patent. And that has to deal with the commerce aspect of the digital fingerprint with Web3. So that's already been done, and we'll simply convert that from a patent pending to a international filing in the very near future.
And is the technology being deployed at this time?
Yes, it is in the sense of that the digital fingerprint, that's running, that's available to anybody who wants it. We are in the development phase of our own Web3 royalty supported marketplace. We're also getting ready to test market 500 Silver Eagles with royalties in the near future. We're looking at around 6 to 9 months to be into the marketplace, where you can actually, I mean, we do have them. We've already done a lot of digital fingerprints. What we're finding is the people that we've done them for, they don't want to sell what they have. That's one of the things we have found, but we are equally finding that there's a lot of demand for people that have large collections that say, let's do digital fingerprints on all of them, get them into the Web3 marketplace.
And then can you explain the tech in the process with a trading card?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
Yeah, can you explain the tech in this process with a trading card?
Yeah, the tech is really identical in numismatics and sports trading cards and comics, and that is because the underlying technologies themselves measure at 2.5 microns, which is a massive amount of data. In a sports card in particular, what that does is that detects patterns of color, for example, and many other things. But the easiest one to describe would be a color pattern. If you've ever seen that at 2.5 microns, you can literally count the pixels, the pixel placement on a pixel by pixel basis. And those pixels create identifiable patterns. So for whoever is asking that question, it's a great question. If you'd like to see a sample of it, contact me by email at ceo@coinandcardauctions.com, and I will send you a sample or set you up a demo where we can share this with you.
And then regarding the patents, what's the difference between filing and granted? Which one do you have?
I hate to ask you to repeat it, but
No worries. Regarding the patents, what's the difference between filing and granted? Which one do you have?
Oh, okay. Well, we have filed a international patent. The international patent process, and we could have our patent attorney speak to this. It takes up to about 2 years for once you've submitted the patent for that to come back and see if there's any issues you have to address or corrections or adjustments to it. We are close to the end of that 2-year period right now. So filed and a patent which has been issued is pending the completion of the issue process. So we are still in that process of completion. What does that do? It protects our technologies as declared or defined in the filed patent, and it does the same in the patent pending.
And then why a laser and not a structured white light?
Well, we actually have both. They do different things, but essentially what you're looking for is that we're extracting height, color, and image data. When we extract height, color, and image data, we're extracting from already graded numismatics, let's say, or whatever they are. Now, that being the case, we have to use a system that can see through that plastic encapsulation as if it does not exist. That's the reason that we started there. But that's not where we're going to end up. And I say that because when we accumulate these hundreds of millions of data points and enter those hundreds of millions of data points as measured data, and then be able to apply algorithms and pattern identification and matching and so on, we can then move into a different phase, which is the processing, the deep neural network and the artificial intelligence processing. And that then takes into a whole other area where it starts to get us into the smartphone end, the iOS, the Android, digital level images and things of this nature.
And let's talk a little bit about the crowdfunding campaign. What is the biggest incentive right now to becoming an investor?
Yeah, so one of the things I want to make sure I don't do is do anything which is considered forward-looking. So I would refer anybody to the Reg C offering, which is at investcoinandcard.com, because it is broker dealer compliant. We do all the things that we have to do, and I do not want to make any sort of statements or comments or observations which might otherwise be construed as forward leading. I think I'll leave it at that, because the SEC understandably is they're very protective of their process and procedures, which I completely agree with.
And then are you just patenting the Keyence technology?
Can you? No, absolutely not. So the Keyence technology, Keyence is a company which develops laser systems. So the laser systems, it's the outputs. Anybody, if they want to go out and spend, $250,000, go out and buy a laser system and, have at it. But it's the deep neural network and artificial intelligence processing, which is fundamental to the infrastructure as it relates to everything else that we have described. So without that component, you just have a laser. You don't have the capability to apply digital DNN AI for third-party grading. That's the major component. Now, to that end of things, one of the aspects that we brought into this is that we utilize multiple layers of data. In other words, the output data that is derived from the laser systems is one thing.
Mm-hmm.
The second layer of data, for example, are the international standards of measurement specific to surface roughness. That's also a secondary data layer. But it's the DNN AI processing that is truly unique, because without that, you can't have the remainder that is the fingerprint, the grading, and so on.
If I can chime in there, I think there's a question about CompuGrade as well and why that didn't work out. So what Mike is saying here, it's super important, when you're trying to mathematically assess the coin or model the coin and, and identify what's in that coin or other collectible. The mathematical modeling is absolutely crucial, and so a lot of that has not been done previously. But what we're doing here is making sure that modeling is done properly and that science is done properly, in a way it's practical for blockchain as well as Web3 technologies. So.
Awesome. That's all the questions. Was there anything else you guys wanted to add before we wrapped up here today?
I'll leave the closing to Charles, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up. I just want to thank everybody that has participated today. I hope this has been informative. Please reach out to us with any questions that you do have. Charles?
Go. Thank you all as well. I think a very exciting technology. I think as Mike has echoed and others have talked about, technology can solve a lot of these challenges with the industry and also expand the industry and open up to people in ways that has not been possible before. A lot of frustrations and again, because it can open up those opportunities and open up collectibles to more people and in new ways, it does expand the market. So there's a lot of ways that we can be able to bring more people in, bring more money in, and a lot more people to enjoy the industry as well. So it's something that I'm pretty excited about. I think others are very excited about, and I think it's a bright future for it. So yeah, thank you all.
Well, perfect. Thank you very much, Khalil. Thank you for DNA Digital Niche Agency, marketing, putting this together. Appreciate that very much.
Of course.
You guys did an incredible job with your marketing, which was very appreciated. And again, thank you to everybody that has participated. We're really open. I mean, please don't hesitate to ask any questions you do have. I mean, it's important that we'd like to see the investor community, the numismatic, the collectibles community get engaged and ask questions, and we'll do what we can to provide you answers. It's an open door. I mean, let's all grow this industry and make it something better than what it is now.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, everyone who attended today's webinar. If you weren't able to attend, again, this webinar has been recorded, so we will be posting a recap, so be on the lookout for that. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.